Good morning and a very warm welcome. You are watching Janata Television and this is the English Bulletin with me, Sushant Akal. The top stories first. Government pledges relief to victims of natural disaster, decides to remove quarantine facilities from school premises. CCMC decides to scale up PCR tests, areas with high rate of infection to be sealed. Police officials accused of destroying evidence in Nirmala Panta case acquitted. District Court releases them back in lack of evidence. WHO warns of resurgence of coronavirus, tells partying youngsters not to let down the guards. And Fulham progresses to the finals of the Championship playoff, keeps hopes of immediate return to the Premier League alive. And now the news in detail. The government has pledged to provide relief of rupees 200,000 to the families of flood victims and people killed in landslide as well as other natural disasters. Government spokesperson Yuvraj Khatiora informed that the government has decided to provide financial assistance of rupees 200,000 to the families that have lost one member to natural calamities. The death of another member of the same family will entitle them to receive an additional support of rupees 100,000, said Minister Khatiora. He informed that the government has decided to provide relief in accordance to one-door policy. Minister Khatiora added that the government will also provide proper relief to those who have lost their houses or sustained damages to their crops due to floods and landslides.
विपदको घटनामा परि कुनै परिवारको एकजनाको मृत्यु भएमा रु 2 लाखको दरले सोही परिवारमा अन्य व्यक्तिको समेत मृत्यु भएमा प्रति व्यक्ति रु 1 लाखका दरले राहत रकम उपलब्ध गराउने व्यवस्था गरिएको छ। यसरी मृतकको परिवारलाई उपलब्ध गराउने राहत एकद्वार नीति अवलम्बन गरी उपलब्ध गराउने।
Meanwhile, the government has decided not to continue quarantine facilities on school premises anymore. As per the latest government decision, the school buildings will be disinfected by the local units as preparation to reopen classes.
पनि हामीले पठन पाठन सुरु गरिसकेका छैनौं। खाली नियमित रूपमा परीक्षा सञ्चालन गर्ने सामान्य रिजल्ट निकाल्ने कुराहरुदेखि लिएर भर्नासम्मका कुराहरु गरेका छौं र कोभिडको चाहिँ जोखिम बढ्दै जाँदा या कम हुँदै जाँदा तदनुरूप फेरि सरकारले कदम चाल्छ नि।
Likewise, the government has also decided to provide 50% discount on customs duty to Food Management and Trade Company and Salt Trading Corporation to import 20,000 metric tons of sugar. Coronavirus has claimed 5 more lives in the country. Spokesperson at the Health Ministry, Dr. Jageshwar Gautam, confirmed the 2 deaths of individuals in Parsa and 1 in Morang yesterday, while 2 more deaths have been confirmed in Birganj. With this, the total death toll from COVID-19 in the country has climbed to 54. Yesterday, 274 new cases of COVID-19 were traced in the country, taking the total tally to 19,547. According to spokesperson Gautam, 5,217 infected are receiving treatment at different hospitals across the country. 227 individuals were discharged yesterday after recovery. With this, the total number of individuals recovering from the disease stands at 14,248. Also, 13,201 individuals are currently kept in quarantine facilities across the country. A meeting of the COVID-19 Crisis Management Centre's Directive Committee yesterday decided to seal the areas with increasing cases of coronavirus and scale up PCR tests in those places. The meeting decided to conduct a risk assessment of areas where COVID-19 cases have been rising swiftly after the lockdown was lifted. The scale of PCR tests will also be expanded. Different places throughout the country where COVID-19 cases have been reported, the most will be immediately sealed to stem further spread of the disease, informed Mahendra Guragai, Secretary at the Office of the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers.
आवश्यकता अनुसार पीसीआर परीक्षण गर्ने भाद्र 1 गतेदेखि सुरु हुने सेवा सञ्चालनका मापदण्ड सम्बन्धित मन्त्रालयले छिटै तयार गर्ने, प्रवेश बिन्दुमै क्वारेन्टाइन व्यवस्थापन गर्ने, केही दिनको परीक्षण नतिजाका आधारमा परिस्थिति विश्लेषण गर्ने र भावी रणनीति तय गर्ने।
The meeting also delegated the concerned ministries with the responsibility to prepare necessary health protocols required for resuming operation of the service sector starting from 17th August next month. The government has now decided to set up quarantine facilities at all entry points of Kathmandu Valley. Earlier, the government had only been conducting PCR tests of passengers willing to enter Kathmandu from different entry points. The meeting has also agreed to conduct an in-depth analysis of PCR tests conducted after the lockdown to come up with an effective strategy. COVID-19 cases has been on the rise lately because the safety standard prescribed by the Ministry of Health and Population has not been followed, the meeting concluded. This is Janata Bulletin. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back after the break. We continue with other national news. Police officers, including the then SP Dilliraj Bista, accused of destroying evidence in the rape and murder case of Nirmala Panta, have been acquitted by the District Court, Kanchanpur. District Court Judge Gopal Prasad Bastola gave clean sheet to 8 police personnel, including then Chief of Kanchanpur District Police SP Dilliraj Bista, charged with distorting the evidence. According to Yaduraj Sharma, Registrar at the Kanchanpur District Court, all police personnel, including SP Bista, were acquitted due to lack of evidence.
पीडित भनिएका दिलीप सिंह बिष्टलाई पक्राउ गरी हिरासतमा राख्दाको बखत निजको स्वास्थ्य परीक्षण गरेकोमा निजको शरीरमा कुनै घाउ चोट नीलडाम नदेखिएको हैन। त्यसपछि शारीरिक मानसिक अवस्था सामान्य रहेको भन्ने परीक्षण रिपोर्टबाट देखिएको, निजलाई त्यो ज्यान सम्बन्धी कसुरमा अदालतमा म्याद थपको क्रममा पटक पटक सोध्दाखेरि पनि निजले त्यो मलाई चाहिँ याद नदिएको छ, त्यस्तो चाहिँ अमानवीय व्यवहार गरेको छ, त्यस्तो भन्ने कुरा नखुलाएको।
The then SP of Kanchanpur, Dilliraj Bista, DSP Angur GC, DSP Gyan Bahadur Shetty, Inspector Ekindra Bahadur Khadka, Inspector Jagdish Prasad Bhatta, Sub-Inspector Hari Singh Dhami, Ram Singh Dhami and Constable Chandani Saud were charged court case for allegedly destroying evidence. The 3 people who fled after dumping 14 kilograms of counterfeit gold and 2 sets of pistols have been caught with their gateway vehicle by the police. The police have recovered the Scorpio Jeep with registration number BA6CHA5519 from Nokhi Port of Lalitpur after fleeing a police checkpoint at Kamaladi on Tuesday, police informed. The Metropolitan Crime Division caught the 3 suspects after coordinating with the Nawalparasi East Division of the police. The division released the names of the suspects Devan Patel, Vijay Patel and Nalesh Mukhia. After questions were raised about the police's involvement in the case, a committee led by an SSP has been formed to study the case and submit a report about the case in 5 days. Tourism Ministry of Nepal is all set to reopen its mountains, including Mount Everest, to climbers for the autumn season, Reuters reported yesterday, citing government officials. The latest move is a bid to boost the tourism-dependent economy despite rising coronavirus infections, said the news agency. Home to 8 of the world's 14 tallest mountains, Nepal shut down climbing and trekking in March to stem the novel coronavirus. The disease has so far infected 19,547 people and caused 54 deaths in the country of 30 million. We have reopened mountaineering and will issue climbing permits for the autumn season, Reuters quoted Tourism Department official Meera Acharya as saying. She added that climbers must follow health protocols issued by the government. The autumn climbing season in Nepal runs from September to November. While infections in many Western nations are falling, South Asian countries, including Nepal, are still witnessing a steady rise in the caseload. Though the government now wants to reopen climbing, international flights are shut until mid-August and travel restrictions within Nepal remain. And now the news from the economic front. The Confederation of Nepalese Industries CNI has urged the government to expedite the process of implementation of the monetary policy. Chairman, position holders and members of CNI met with Finance Minister Yubaraj Khatiwada and requested for swift implementation of the monetary policy and the budget of the current fiscal year. The representative group of the CNI also requested for subsidy in electricity prices for all industries working in production sector. Similarly, VAT returns on imported goods, IEE for industries, and solve the problems and issues presented by the EIA on industries are some of the other demands of the CNI. Finance Minister Khatiwada took the briefing from the CNI members and said that all genuine demands of the industrial sector will be addressed in due time. 48 workers of Bharatpur-based Office of Bottlers Nepal Limited have started protest demanding reinstatement of their jobs. Organizing a press conference recently, they said that the company forcefully removed them from their jobs. They said that the company's unlawful act left them vulnerable during the current crisis and struggling to make ends meet. Buddhiman Century, the coordinator of Agitating Labour's Committee, said that they have started protest after the company removed them from job unlawfully. They have been organizing peaceful sit-in as part of the protest. The victims say they had been working in the company's warehouse as loaders. They had been serving in the company from 5 to 10 years. All of the workers who lost their jobs are the locals of the area. They complained that it was unfair to remove them and appoint new workers in their place. They also warned that their protest will continue until they get reinstated by the company. Meanwhile, Bottlers Nepal Limited has said that the workers were hired on contract basis from another company that supplies manpower. Therefore, the company is not responsible for additional facilities of the workers. Bottlers Nepal claimed that the workers have been provided all the remuneration they have earned. The agitating workers were hired on subcontract basis from Pawan Transport Company, claimed Bottlers Nepal. Time for a short break here at Janata Bulletin. Stay tuned for international news. Welcome back, and now the international news. Young people letting down their guard to enjoy the summer holidays are partly driving a spike in new COVID-19 cases in some countries, Reuters reported, citing the World Health Organization yesterday. According to the news agency, a fresh jump in cases in parts of Europe, the United States and Asia has fueled fears of a second wave of coronavirus infections and prompted some countries to impose new restrictions on travel. We've said this before and will say it again, young people are not invincible, WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus told a news briefing in Geneva. Evidence suggests that recent spikes of cases in some countries are being driven in part by younger people letting down their guard during the Northern Hemisphere summer, he said. Maria van Kerkhove, a top WHO epidemiologist told the same briefing that nightclubs were amplifiers of transmission. The WHO this month urged travelers to wear masks on planes and keep themselves informed as COVID-19 cases surge again in some countries. Its previous guidance for travelers has included a common sense advice applicable to other settings such as social distancing, washing hands, and avoiding touching your eyes, nose, or mouth. At least 18 people, including Afghan security personnel, were killed in a suspected car bombing in eastern Afghanistan yesterday, Reuters reported. According to the news agency, the blast took place hours before a 3-day ceasefire was to begin in the country for the Muslim festival of Eid al-Adha. The ceasefire announced by the Taliban comes at a time when violence has risen across the war-torn country. A US-brokered peace talk between the militant group and an Afghan government-mandated committee awaits the completion of a prisoner exchange between the two sides. The Taliban denied responsibility for the bombing in a statement from spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahideen. You are watching Janata Bulletin, and now the latest from the world of sports. Fulham have secured their place in the playoff final despite losing the second leg of their semi-final tie against Cardiff. The Londoners, who carried a 2-0 lead from their first leg, lost 2-1 yesterday but still progressed 3-2 on aggregate. Cardiff scored through Nelson in the 8th minute, but Fulham equalised through Cabano within 60 seconds of the restart. Cardiff got one back in the 47th minute to give the Welsh side the lead in the night, but lost the tie as the scoreline meant Fulham still qualified on a higher aggregate score. The win keeps Fulham's chance of an immediate return to the Premier League alive, while Cardiff's attempt to secure promotion back at the first time of asking are over. Fulham's aggregate victory sets up an all-West London final on Tuesday against Brentford, who themselves saw off opposition from South Wales in the shape of Swansea on Wednesday. A Saudi Arabian-backed consortium has ended its bid to buy Newcastle United. The group, which included Saudi Arabia's Sovereign Wealth Fund, PIF, PCP Capital Partners and Reuben Brothers, had agreed a £300 million deal to buy the club from Mike Ashley in April. The deal was still being scrutinized under the Premier League's owners and directors test, and it is understood PIF ran out of patience, BBC reports. Amanda Stively, the British businesswoman behind PCP Partners, said she was upset for the club's supporters. As revealed by the BBC, the Premier League was seeking clarification on the links between PIF and Saudi state. PIF's chairman is Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and the lawyers had been struggling to establish precise links between the consortium and the Saudi government. The consortium's withdrawal could pave the way for a takeover by American entrepreneur Henry Maurice, who has registered his interest in Newcastle. Swiss prosecutors have launched legal proceedings against FIFA president Gianni Infantino. The issues rose after an alleged secret meeting between Infantino, the head of the world football's governing body, held with Swiss Attorney General Michael Lauber. Lauber himself had offered resignation after a court said he covered up the meeting and lied to a supervisor during an investigation by his office into corruption surrounding FIFA. Both have denied any wrongdoing. The authority overseeing the Office of the Attorney General, OAG, said there were indications of criminal conduct related to the meeting of the two. The OAG said it had taken note of all developments, adding Lauber would make statements to parliamentary committees if necessary. FIFA is based in Swiss city of Zurich. We are at the end of Janata Bulletin, and the headlines once again. Government pledges relief to victims of natural disaster, decides to remove quarantine facilities from school premises. CCMC decides to scale up PCR tests, areas with high rate of infection to be sealed. Police officials accused of destroying evidence in a Nirmala Panta case acquitted. District Court releases them in lack of evidence. WHO warns of resurgence of coronavirus, tells partying youngsters not to let down guard. And Fulham progresses to the finals of the Championship playoff, keeps hopes of immediate return to the Premier League alive. And that's all from the English News Desk for today. You can follow Janata Television and our programs on various social media platforms, including on our website janatasamachar.com. Keep watching Janata Television. Namaste.